Sorry about that. Once again, this meeting is being recorded in all mediums. Calling the meeting to order at 6:15 p.m. We'll start with roll call. For the purpose of the recording, may I please get an audible roll call from the Personnel Board, starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Present.
Board Member Front,
Present.
Chair Wizik. Present. Thank you. Moving on to item 2, agenda review. Any items to review? None. Moving on to item 3, statement of conflict of interest. None. Moving on to item 4, approval of minutes, meeting of February 27th, 2025. We do have a comment from Cordell Hindler.
Me. So, good evening, Chair Wersick, board members. My name is Cordell Hindler, and I'm a Richmond resident. So, I went back to the recording of the meeting that you were about to approve. I listened to it, and I think the minutes came out as accurate. So, I like the minutes as presented, so I'm asking the board to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Cordell.
Chair Wersick approves.
Chair Wersick makes a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Vice Chair Buckner approves.
Voting to approve the meeting minutes of February 27th, 2025, starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Front.
Yes.
Meeting minutes of February 27, 2025 are approved. Moving on to public comment. We do have one in-person public comment from Cordell Hindler.
Me. So, good evening again, Chair Wersick, board members. I am Cordell Hindler, and I have 3 items to bring forward for placement on the May 22nd agenda. So, as I'm gonna do it like on the agenda. So, is to approve the revisions of the Deputy Director of Economic Development. Second is approve revisions of Economic Development Finance Manager. And the third item is to receive a presentation from Ralph Tellis in regarding the workforce analysis, because I'm bringing these items forward is because I had spoken with Nanette Beecham at the March 12th Economic Development Commission meeting, and I asked her to say if she was interested in bringing some classifications forward. And so because she is only one department head, she cannot oversee 6 divisions. And I say that because I've looked at other departments that has a deputy, like a finance director and deputy city manager. And I'm thinking that if these departments can have deputies, I think that economic development needs a deputy, because one person will oversee those divisions, and the deputy will be like the second in command. So to making sure that that everything is in line. So I'm asking that if these items be placed on the May 22nd agenda, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Cordell. We are going to move to see if we have a public comment through Zoom. No. Looks like we do have one from Kevin Tis. Kevin, can you hear us? Kevin? Kevin, can you hear us? Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Just appropriate, I have a comment on one of the agendized items. I'll be able to speak on that at that time, correct?
Yes, at the time of the agenda items announced, you can raise your hand and
Thank
we'll
you.
go to comments. Okay.
Thank you. I'll lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay. So that's it for the public comments. Moving on to consent agenda. Don't have anything on the consent agenda. So we'll move on to new business. Item 7A, reestablish the classification of paratransit coordinator and improve the job specification. Human Resources Director Sharon Taylor will present the staff report.
Good evening, Sharon Taylor, Human Resources Director. Greetings, Chair Wersick, Chair Buckner, and Board Member Front. I would like to present to you the paratransit coordinator classification. This is actually an old classification that we removed through the class and comp study because the transportation division, which was retitled Our Transit, had gone through some changes and we didn't see the need to continue keeping the specification. However, after an audit by an outside agency of our paratransit or Our Transit division, it was determined that there was a need for a paratransit coordinator to oversee day-to-day operations and to ensure that we are serving our community adequately through our transit services and all of our other supplemental transportation services that we are currently offering the community. So we're bringing forth, again, the reestablishment of the paratransit coordinator for your consideration. And we do have Joseph Munoz, our Assistant Deputy Public Works Director, here if you have any questions.
We'd like to hear from him.
Okay, thank you. It's the Assistant Deputy Director Munoz.
Good evening, Chair Worsig and members of the Personnel Board. Is there anything specific that you're questioning or asking?
Vice Chair Buckner here. I'd like to find out the essential duties and responsibility. Is there a work number of individuals that would be in that department under the paratransit and as I'm reading through there's a lot of things required under this classification, and can that one individual cover these things efficiently? So that's one of my questions.
Yes, so at this point, I believe the Transportation Department's in a transition period, and part of that is two of the project managers that were originally there have departed. And so as we're working to put that together between two departments, this position is part of a larger plan. And as we are hiring other other needs, transportation planners, we're hiring, moving around administrative assistants that we have in other departments. Essentially, we're reforming that group as we speak. So this is an essential piece of that to begin that process. But yes, it is a large department with a lot of needs that serves the city. So this is one cog in the machine, I would say.
And also, if I may, I do have Deputy City Manager LaShonda White on the line that is transitioning the Transportation Division over to Public Works, and she may have something additional to add. She is currently on Zoom. Can we please bring LaShonda White into the presentation?
LaShonda, can you hear us? LaShonda? Okay, while we get her working through Zoom.
Okay. Okay. So this position, Our Transit is staffed. They do have drivers. Oh, she's here. And they currently do have drivers in the position. The division was previously overseen by a project manager who has retired. And that project manager not only oversaw our transit, but also some of our other transportation programs that we have, such as our bikes and our charging stations and things like that. And so there is a need to have a concentrated oversight over just the Our Transit division. But Deputy City Manager White is here to provide additional context.
Good evening, LaShonda White, Deputy City Manager for Community Services. Happy to be here tonight. Can you repeat the question for me? Because I was in transit, running.
I'll try to restate it.
Thank you.
As
I
accurate as
appreciate
I
it.
can. But I was looking at the classification and I realized there's a lot of things underneath this title and what it encompasses. And so with the paratransit coordinator, is there enough support to get this job done in regards to the employees and implementing all of the things that goes on day to day. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. It's overwhelming. So I just wanted to know if this was a situation that we took into either having someone assist him or all these other things. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you repeating that question. So I have been providing support to that division after the retirement of the employee that was leading the work. And so I do believe that it is possible for a paratransit coordinator to really lead and run that division. We put in a lot of details in the job description, just to be very clear about all of the different things that this person would need to do. But I do believe it is feasible to do that. They would oversee, we have 2 full-time drivers right now. There is one paratransit like dispatcher, kind of lead worker that provides support day to day. And then there's a part-time staff person. And then, so that individual, the paratransit coordinator, will oversee those 3 FTEs. So that span of leadership is manageable. And then they will oversee, right now, 2 contracts with some outside vendors to provide. One is Lyft, who provides a car rideshare service. And then they also would provide oversight for another on-call van service. So it's 3 FTEs plus van service, plus the 2 contracts. And then they'll have to go to meetings that I've been going to. And so I really do think that it's feasible. We just try to be very detailed in here, but it's a doable position.
Thank you for explanation. Appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
I was wondering if you can give a little more detail as to like why this role didn't exist before, and the need for it to come back. Yeah.
Have no problem. So the position did exist previously. So a person held the position as a paratransit coordinator, and they oversaw actually more than 2 drivers. We had a much bigger fleet. We had more FTEs. That person did that work. They responded to, they had to do reporting requirements for CCTA, who's our funder. And that position, I think through attrition, that person left. And at the time, the city manager then decided that they could bring in another city staff person that could oversee the division along with other work. That was the model we've been going on, using for many years. And as Ms. Taylor mentioned, the funder, CCTA, through the audit, said, no, you need to go back to your old model of having someone dedicated to really focus on the work. So we're trying to go back to what we think is a better model.
Got it. Were there like specific performance gaps that the auditor identified that were the reasons for bringing them back?
So yeah, so we were having, just in terms, we need to increase ridership. We needed to do more outreach, community engagement. We needed to do a better job of submitting our reports to the funder. These are all the tasks that a dedicated paratransit coordinator would do. We needed someone who could go to the CCTA paratransit coordinating meetings. Someone who can really work on standard operating procedures and updating policies. So someone can just focus on the work and making sure that our staff were trained properly. So these were all things that we weren't able to consistently do with someone who was splitting their time with not just focusing on paratransit, but this individual was doing other transportation-related projects as well.
Got it. Makes sense. And so this person will then, I assume, be able to focus on
This person will focus on paratransit.
Yeah.
And be able to make sure that we are providing the absolute best service, make sure our policies are up to date, make sure our staff are supported and managed well, that they are trained, and that we're meeting all our reporting requirements so we can get all of our money to continue to provide services to the community.
Great. And who's doing it right now since the program manager left?
I am providing a lot of support, not just to paratransit, but to our other transportation projects. And we also have a consultant that's helping do some day-to-day, just making sure that we are responding to the audit, because we're in a performance improvement plan process right now, so for a year. So needed some extra support to make sure we're really focused. And so with the time I'm spending, plus the time that the consultant is spending, which is not full-time, I definitely can see how this can be a full-time job for someone to focus on paratransit services.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So once this person is hired, does that mean the consultant goes away?
Yes.
Great.
Well, let me say this. The consultant may stay on for a little bit to provide some training opportunity because a person has been working on reporting. We have to report monthly to CCTA. Then we have to also do quarterly reports to CCTA. We have to do an annual report to CCTA. The consultant is helping to do standard operating procedures. And so the consultant is doing some things that we want to make sure there's a transfer of information and knowledge to the new person. They won't stay on forever, but we'll need to have a little bit of overlap to make sure we are sharing information appropriately and that the new employee is set up to succeed, which is really important for us.
So the consultants are hired, on what time frame are they hired or brought in? Are they as needed, contractually in a allotted amount of time?
So, and I'll let, Ms. Taylor speak more to this, but if a department needs additional support through a consultant, we'll go to HR and we'll say, this is the support we need. HR usually will talk to the unions if that's appropriate to see if that's okay. In this instance, we had a huge gap because we didn't have anyone who's providing that service and we were getting audited and we were under performance review. And so when we talked to the HR director, gave them a list of the things we needed support with, they go find someone that may be already on the on-call list, working with an existing contractor, and then they'll try and match us with someone. And so that's what happened. We got a consultant that has worked in government previously, not in Richmond, but somewhere else. They worked for a consulting firm, and they were able to come in and really hit the ground running with a little bit of background information because they've done transportation work previously. So HR will try and match us as a department with someone in a consulting firm that has expertise so that we can get the support we need. I don't have a background in transportation or paratransit. The person we have had done some paratransit transportation work in a previous life. And so they were really able to come in and provide that support, and then we'll let them know how long we need the support for, and we'll work with HR to make sure that happens.
And also, if I may add, consulting work is different than contracting out. So typically when we hire a consultant, it's for a specific project for a predetermined short-term reason. So in this case, we had the retirement of 2 key people in transportation, and we were also facing the audit and some reporting concerns, and we needed additional guidance and expertise. So that is what the consultant is providing, but they're not actually boots on the ground performing the work. It's actually Ms. White, along with other staff members, actually performing the work. When we contract out, that's also a short-term solution. If we have, I would say, like vacancies or short-term reasons that we may need to shore up our efforts, such as if City Council gives us a directive and we need to hire additional people while we meet and confer and sort out things, then we may contract out, and we typically will have a meet and confer with the unions before we bring on contractors for those short-term roles.
One last question, if I may. So this is an open position, and at this point, we don't have a paratransit coordinator in place.
We do not have we have a paratransit lead worker and 2 paratransit drivers. Any of those individuals, and even the part-time person, once it gets posted, can apply, as well as others from the outside.
Thank you for asking my extended question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, LaShonda. Thank you. And we do have a comment from Cordell Hindler.
So good evening again, Chair Worthig, board members. I am Cordell Henley, and I'm a Richmond resident. So thank you, Joseph and LaShonda, for this report. And I looked at the report, the classification, and I don't have no objections to it. So I think it is fine as it is. So, and I'm going to say this: for the board to approve the classification as presented by staff, and number 2 is to direct staff to work with a consultant on the recruitment efforts. So I don't have no problem with it.
Thank you, Cordell.
Chair Worthig moves to approve.
Chair Wizik making the first motion. Do we have a second?
Vice Chair Buckner, approve.
Vice Chair Buckner seconds. Voting to approve reestablish the classification of paratransit coordinator and approve the job specification, starting with Vice Chair Buckner,
Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Friend.
Yes.
The reestablishment of the classification of paratransit coordinator and the job specifications have been approved. Moving on to item 7B, approve the revisions to the construction inspector 1/2 job specification. We'll hand it over to Human Resources Director Sharon Taylor for the staff report.
Greetings, I present to you today the revisions to the Construction Inspector 1/2 job description. In July 2024, City Council gave us a directive to establish the sidewalk enforcement ordinance. They actually made an addition to the Richmond Municipal Code to ensure that vendors who are outside on our sidewalks have the proper licenses and permissions to sell their items or either food. There were health concerns, of course, with the vendors, as well as the fact that they were in the right-of-way, which are our sidewalks and other thoroughfares. So we determined that the construction inspector would have a natural progression into enforcing the sidewalk ordinance due to the fact that they currently inspect right-of-way and encroachments for construction. The right-of-way is included in the municipal code as the sidewalk, so it all kind of fit into place. We have engaged in the meet and confer process, which is also ongoing with the unions to discuss the shifts and also other ways of implementation. In order to implement the program as soon as possible per City Council directive, we did hire a contractor to assist us with enforcement, and we're hoping that once the description is fully edited, we will be able to transition the duties completely over to the construction inspectors, including the one additional inspector that City Council approved to specifically do this work and to bring it completely in-house.
Hi, good evening. My question is, when we speak about vendors, are there specific vendors? Are we talking food trucks or, I don't know?
It would be any vendor that is in an unauthorized section, vending items. One of the wonderful, I guess, programs that came out of it is that now we have like a food truck event that happens down on McDonald. It's right next to the BART station to allow individuals who do want to vend like food and items to do it through the proper measures. They have the licenses, they've been cleared by the health department, and they have a safe venue that does not clog up our thoroughfares and our sidewalks in order to ensure that our communities are safe.
And these permits, are they issued by the Health Department of Contra Costa County and the licenses through the City of Richmond?
It is my understanding that, yes, it is in conjunction with the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So who performed these duties before?
Well, it's a new program, and it is something that we just implemented in July. So we noticed that there was an uptick of the sidewalk vendors around that time, and the City Council decided to take immediate action.
So to play devil's advocate, would that not be more of a code enforcement type of thing, or
So,
more of a construction?
So we do have, we have asked code enforcement to be a backup for the construction inspectors. The reason why there was a natural progression is because currently code enforcement, they inspect like private areas. They're very specific in the areas in which they would inspect, whereas the construction inspectors were already doing like right-of-way enforcement. So that was the difference. But we're bringing forth not only the construction inspectors, but also the code enforcement officers so that they can hopefully collaborate. Again, the code enforcement officers will simply they will be backup. They won't have the primary function, but they will have the ability to assist. Or if we needed to hire a code enforcement officer under Public Works, we would be able to do that. Currently, they are under Community Development, and they fall under the Code Enforcement Division.
So when we say vendors, are we talking about, okay, so I live on South 37th, and we have vendors that are mobile, that move along, and those folks are, we're talking about stationary vendors that are coming out onto the sidewalk and blocking things and setting up shop on public property or
So,
private property.
yes, I would say that it would be sidewalk vendors, and as it is defined in the Richmond Municipal Code, it would be a person who sells food or merchandise from a push cart, a stand, a display, a pedal-driven cart, a wagon, showcase rack, or any other non-motorized conveyance. So I would say that, yes, it would include those individuals as well.
And we have no idea, we've never seen even the code. I mean, we don't even know what the city is, we have no clue what the code is, you know?
You mean the Richmond Municipal Code that was
Exactly.
passed?
Yeah,
It was at a public city council meeting.
yeah.
So that information is publicly available. It is also on our website as well. I can give you the number of the Richmond Municipal Code as well. But I would like to share with you that if it would be helpful, I don't know if you have your like anything where I can email it to you at this point, but I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. I have the code up just to help you understand what the city is trying to achieve through the establishment of, through the revision of this current job specification.
And this code was adopted when did this?
It was in July
Okay,
of 2024.
right. Has the union said anything? How does the union stand on this?
The union they do have concerns about the shift, and they also have concerns about the job duties. We've engaged in meet and confer. We started the meet and confer process in July. And so the issues that we still need to resolve, we're willing to still continue those conversations with them.
So on your guys' end, it's still a work in progress.
The actual implementation is to a certain extent, but we do have direction from City Council that the ordinance must be enforced, and it's been in effect for about 6 months now. So we must move forward with ensuring that the municipal code is enforced.
So these vendors will be working nights, weekends? I mean, vendors are out, that's 24/7.
Yes, that is the shift work. It would be nights and weekends.
Oh, wow. So is this just this is a position, this is gonna be, we're adding another person. We need.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have currently, doesn't seem like we have the manpower so what would your estimation, how many people, you're saying one person?
Currently, we have authorization for one additional person. Of course, that's always vacancy levels. The need is always being evaluated. And if there's the need to add an additional position, we will get that direction from either the city manager or city council. But currently, like I was stating, we're using contractors, and we, would prefer to bring it in-house.
So currently we have contractors.
Yes.
Okay. So that was something, yeah, we were totally unaware of. So these contractors are going out, interfacing with vendors of all stripes. So there's language, there's all kinds of, I can see all kinds of, that's tricky to me. But you have it covered.
Yes, we have it covered. And I do have, again, Assistant Deputy Director Joseph Muniz here to provide some additional context if you need it directly from the department.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question. In the updated job duties, it sounds like this isn't limited to just vendor enforcement, right? It's just all public right-of-ways?
They currently inspect all public right-of-ways for encroachment and for compliance. But this particular addition is just for the sidewalk vendor ordinance. It's for enforcing that.
Oh, okay. Well, looking at it, it looks like am I reading this wrong? The bullet point under essential duties and responsibilities that's added is inspects the city's right-of-way areas to ensure compliance with city ordinances, including ordinances related to right-of-way use, safety, and sidewalk vending activities.
Yes.
But that's not just limited to sidewalk vending, right? Wouldn't it also include like I don't know, any other blocking of public right-of-way?
Yes, it would. I mean, it is something that they currently do. We were looking to ensure that I guess the job description was more specific to really detail everything that is encompassed, but the motivation to revising was to ensure that the sidewalk ordinance enforcement was included.
Okay. And do they work with the police department to like for reports of this or something, or like how does that
I would
work?
have to defer to the department. I'm not clear on the inner workings of how it intersects. I would imagine that they would,
Okay.
but I can't speak to that specifically.
Yeah, I was curious too about how that like hypothetical coordination with code enforcement might work as well, if they're in like different departments, or if that's something that the city is working on. I'm not sure.
There currently isn't a plan to bring code enforcement under Public Works.
Yeah.
They're currently under community development, but you know, it could be something that the city could consider later. I don't have any information that is in the future plans.
Okay.
We'll move on to comment for this item. We're starting with the in-person comments. Cordell Hindler.
Thank you. So good evening again, Chair Worthig, board members. I am Cordell Hindler, and I am a Richmond resident. So what I'm presenting is I got the similar classification from the city of Hayward. There you go, Rosalind. And so I had a conversation with their public works director, and I asked him that same question that was being addressed. So did this construction inspector do they deal with the the sidewalk vending? And his response was no, there was nothing in the classification that specifies sidewalk vending. So I took that from the city of Hayward's classification, and it's all right there. It says like it deals with streets and public right-of-ways. So I do like the classification as presented, but I had the similar concerns regarding like of sidewalk vending, which is I know you're going to talk about after this item, and I do like the classification, so I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. So for one, to approve the classification as presented from staff, and number two is kind of like, you know, take out the sidewalk vetting, because that construction inspectors, they deal with streets. They don't deal, well, they do deal with streets, but it's like not sidewalk vending. So I do like the classification, and the final thing is to direct staff to work with a consultant on the recruitment of these positions. And so that being said, I'm gonna let the others speak for this item.
Thank you, Cordell. We do have another comment from Loxacona.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Personnel Board. My name is Loxacona. I am one of two construction inspectors here for the City of Richmond. Our main work is to review plans that's been approved for construction work that take place on the streets. There are a lot of the utilities company, PG&E, East Bay Mud, and they're all doing infrastructure work on our right of way. And we out there to make sure that traffic, TCP, and all their work is safe for our streets. The staff report identify everything that we do and the qualification required of the inspector and the scope. Then they put in to change it to the vendors. Without supplying what does the vendor do, what type of classification is required, what they do. But they do, as I mentioned, they have a whole ordinance complete with what they do and they cannot do. And we don't work with food. We inspect, review plans for major work, all the work that take place on the right of way. And secondly, there's a flex position from 1 to 2. But the city a couple of years ago, they made it almost impossible to flex to a 2 because they made a requirement to have a construction certificate. But there's no class anywhere they can send you to, and there's no. And the people who does that, American Public Works Association, they said the certificate is for those who inspect building bridges, dam, and major construction of road. This I've been part of volunteering to help out with the vendors in the last couple of months. It's very dangerous. We have police escort at night. You got people out there, it's very scary. Just yesterday, I was threatened to be killed. I stopped a vendor and I told him they need the license, and if counties see their food, they might confiscate it. And he said, "I'll kill you." And I said, "Are you threatening me?" And he said, "I'll kill anybody that come and touch the food." So I called PD and had the police come out. It's not safe. I think, this needs to really thoroughly looked at because the person, what the city want to do.
Thank
is
you,
to-
Locke. Sorry, the 2 minutes are
Oh,
up.
sorry.
Thank you. We do have another comment from Keith Lawson.
Yeah, I'd like to say this, is it on? Hi, I'm Keith Lawson, Morning Board. I agree with what Locke is saying. It is a lot of night work, it's dangerous. I believe it should be code enforcement or the police department or the parking enforcement. I don't believe the construction inspector should be going out there telling people to leave. I mean, what are we gonna do, write them a ticket, ask for their ID? I just don't know what they want us to do. Now, you wanna add it, and not tell us how we're gonna move forward with it, there's something wrong with that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. We do have another in-person comment, Josiah Brannaman.
Hello all. Thank you for all you do in keeping the city running. My name is Josiah Brannaman. I'm the field representative for SEIU 1021 for the City of Richmond workers. I'm here to speak on the proposed changes to the classification of construction inspector. We understand the need for expediency and the need for the community, and we do want to participate in making sure that that need is met. It is our position that the primary issue here is understaffing, and it would be relatively easy to address the issue. Our main concern is the permanent change to the classification. We are willing to sign a letter allowing for temporary work in order while the city staffs up, and for that work to be overtime. But we are opposing the permanent change to the classification. And again, we are open to a side letter for temporary delegation to the classifications as long as it is overtime. And the classification is not changed permanently. Thank you for everything.
So, I have a question. So you're willing to temporarily do the work, and you're not worried about setting any kind of precedents that could come back. Hey, you did it. You guys did it. You did it before. And now you're not going to do it anymore. There's not a danger of setting some sort of precedents.
As long as the there are ways of eliminating the danger of precedent in a side letter. We can say for a certain amount of time that this would be allowed in this classification, as long as the classification is not changed permanently. We could say that we will meet and confer again in 6 months and assess the efficacy. There are ways to accommodate that without setting precedent as you're suggesting.
Yeah, because it seems to me that maybe precedence was set once before and look what happened. You know?
Yeah.
So that may not be I don't know, that you don't want any, you just got to be careful, you know. how we
Absolutely.
go about it.
And like I said, that concern is very reasonable and can be, we can prevent that in a side letter. Absolutely.
Thank you, Josiah. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Yeah.
The work that you're willing to do under overtime hours, okay, and therefore there's still a risk of, as was expressed, of danger. So it doesn't lessen the danger working overtime. So I'm trying to put that together. How is that going to work? If it is a temporary or long-term, that's that concern of whom do we call in the event that there's a threat on someone's life. How do we work through those things? That's hitting home for me.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I just think that would be a question for for staff.
I just want to, excuse me, I just remember board members that this is public comment, so you do have questions for staff.
Thank you.
Wait till after public comment has concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move to Zoom public comment. Do we have any raised hands? Doesn't look like we have anybody public comment through Zoom that wants to speak on this item. So we'll move if you have questions for staff.
Good evening. My question is that how do we balance this overtime, taking on this position, and is it long-term or the short-term versus the short-term? How do we manage that? I mean.
So, I'm not really clear on the stance at this point. Anytime an employee works over, their standard hours, they receive overtime. So if they are scheduled to work evenings or weekends, they will receive the customary pay. We're obligated by the law to do that. So I don't see the need for a side letter to memorialize that type of agreement. As far as the performing of the work, it is my understanding they have already started performing the work, however, have now stopped doing the work as of last week. So, that's why they are able to give you a first-hand account of, what they're experiencing. Of course, this is the first time that I've heard it, and probably I need to follow up with the department head because our employees should feel safe when they're out in the field. But again, we've engaged in the meet and confer process regarding the actual job duties. We've also incorporated the department head and the supervisors into those conversations. The shift work isn't part of what you would be considering this evening. It is outside of the job description, and it's something that's handled at the departmental level administratively. And so I have committed to SEIU that we can continue those conversations with the department to make sure that everyone is clear and that, that our employees, of course, feel supported in doing the work. However, as I stated, there is the potential to hire another person to offset the evenings and weekends. And also, I just want to state that now that it's part of the municipal code, we're obligated to enforce it. So.
Thank
And
you.
again, I do have Mr. Muniz here if you have other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if you already explained this, but can you explain again why code enforcement can't take on this role?
Currently, the role is in Public Works. Public Works have the charge to carry out this work. It was assigned by the city manager for them to do that. Like I stated before, the construction inspectors already inspect right-of-way and encroachment and things of that sort, so it seemed like a natural progression. However, as I stated, later on in the evening, we are bringing forth the code enforcement to add similar language, but they will collaborate and be a backup to ensure that the ordinance is enforced. But they will not be the primary. The primary will be the inspectors.
To me, it seems like the code enforcement should be the primary and construction inspector should be the backup, but is there something, what would you say to that?
That would not be my decision.
Why not?
It's a leadership decision as to where it will sit.
It's just the part of safety gets me.
That's definitely a concern for me, of mine as well, and we will need to address that. Unfortunately, our director, Daniel, is out, as well as the deputy, so we don't have them here to address those concerns directly, but it will be something that we will address upon their return. And also, I do have the code enforcement manager, Eva Mann, on the line. She's in Zoom. Perhaps she can give some additional context about, she was here for the code enforcement item, but perhaps she can give some context as to why why it would be, I guess, more appropriate for it to be with the Public Works Department versus code enforcement.
That'd be great.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Eva Mann, Code Enforcement Manager. Code enforcement primarily has the responsibility of taking on the task and assignments on private property. So we primarily are dealing with property owners and private property nuisance violations, and that's the type of enforcement that code enforcement does.
Ms. Mann, is your department capable of backing up the construction on on sidewalk vendors? Are they trained enough to do that? Or is that an additional task that would need training?
It's an additional task for the code enforcement officers because this is a different program altogether. With the work on in the public right of way, in the RMC, all of the responsibilities for work in the right of way, meaning the sidewalk or on the street, or any other area where it's public access, is all of the responsibility of under the Public Works Director. Code enforcement currently is housed under Community Development, which is under the leadership of Lena Velasco.
Thank you.
We do have Lena Velasco, our Community Development Director, on the line as well, if you have any questions for her.
I have a question. Currently, that community development, excuse my ignorance on this, but what exactly are their duties?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Lena.
Okay, sorry. So the Community Development Department is comprised of 4 major divisions, which includes the Planning Division, Building Services, Code Enforcement, as well as Housing Services. Not the Richmond Housing Authority, but where we do manage some grants that we received around homelessness services. and then other housing loan programs that the city has operated over the years when it had a successor agency as well as funding from HUD. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So you see definitely, your department is not even a question of being involved in this issue.
I think what we've talked about is, you know, the primary function is of the Public Works Department for the right of way, but there are opportunities to collaborate on enforcement efforts, particularly when it is affecting private property operations. And so this is sort of the beginning test. And we do enforcement and of private property, and so we're doing right now sharing of our information. Eva's team has been really collaborative, and I think the changes in the job specification are reflecting the collaborations that we can have amongst departments.
Thank you.
How would that collaboration work exactly? Like, how do you envision that?
You know, I think the way it's been discussed is, you know, there are times where you may have an issue flare up. I mean, right now we're dealing with it around tobacco retailers. And so we're, you know, we collaborate with the police department in confiscating or in, you know, writing people up around their operations. And so it would be similar. It'd be when there's a high activity or high demand for enforcement actions. Now it will require some cross training with our staff in terms of how how you would document the violations, but it's really meant to address kind of peak issues where a problem is flaring, and before it gets too out of hand, we would like to have a collaborative effort to address the issue.
Got it. And so I think the thing that's kind of confusing to me right now, and I am admittedly pretty ignorant on a lot of this stuff. So it sounds like if a sidewalk vendor is, you know, illegally vending on the sidewalk, that's a violation, like first and foremost, of the public right of way, versus if a smoke shop just, you know, just pops up in a private business or something, that's like a like a business violation, I guess. And so that's sort of like the differentiation that you're seeing here and why it should live in different departments.
That is correct.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
it's mostly
Go ahead.
where it's occurring. I'm sorry, Sharon. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was kind of asking everyone.
I'll defer to Lena, but yes, that is the difference.
Okay.
I agree.
Is it also a business violation though if a sidewalk vendor is vending without a license? And like, wouldn't that also fall under code enforcement then?
Well, in this case, the way the sidewalk vendor ordinance, which community development did support in the drafting of the ordinance, a special business activity license is required in addition to a business license. And so when the construction inspector would write up a violation, they would not just note that they didn't get the special activity business permit, but they also, assuming they didn't get the business license as well, that may be a second violation that's identified.
Okay. So then is code enforcement going to the, I forget what it's called, but like the designated spot on McDonald's that the sidewalk, like the licensed sidewalk vendors set up? Or would that also be under construction inspectors?
Are you speaking about the mobile vendor plaza?
Yeah. That's the one like
so-
on McDonald by the BART station, right?
Correct. So that property or project is managed from our economic development department. And so they have a vendor who works with the vendors that set up at the site to make sure that they have their application and that they're approved to sell food products through the special, kind of the farmer's market type permit. It's a temporary permit that they get through Contra Costa Health. So that's separate from sidewalk vending because that's part of a mobile vendor park program.
Okay, got it. So the construction inspector, this rule change would not cover that, or farmers markets either, I suppose.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hi there. Thank you for being on the call. I have a question. So the construction inspector pretty much is day shift, right? If I'm not mistaken? Or the shifts are variable, right?
The shifts are veritable. It is my understanding that they do work weekends as well.
Okay. So would they specifically be looking for street vendors, sidewalk vendors? Would that be their task of the day if they were on duty that day or evening?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question. It is my understanding that sometimes there may be a need to inspect like construction or encroachment on weekends. There may be PG&E, maybe drilling. So I don't think that, I guess the shift would determine exactly the work. But again, I can't speak to that equivocally, so.
Thank you.
Do the food vendors, are they charging, do they charge tax? Is that a retail type of?
That I'm not aware of. I don't have that answer.
I'd like to call it, I think we need to talk.
You guys can discuss, but it has to be in the open.
I would say, in my mind, I feel like it's pretty different from what's already on the construction inspector role. I feel like singling out like sidewalk vendor activity in the description permanently. I agree with some of the comments that it just seems like very specific and like tailored to kind of like short-term problems that the city is seeing, and like the moment right now, as opposed to what the vision is like long-term for construction inspector. It just feels like fundamentally pretty different to me. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the best solution is, but this doesn't feel like it. So
Yeah, I tend to agree. The part where it leaves me is I get the encroachment part of it. I get the sidewalk.
Chair, sorry, I was just gonna say, can you put your speaker on?
Okay. I thought it was loud enough. I get the encroachment part of it. I get all that. And they're out there and they're construction inspectors. And so they've got that on there that says inspector. So, but it just seems apples and oranges to me. And the part that gets me is to where you're starting to enforce. You're starting to cross that line. It just feels different to me. It just feels it's not defined. To me, it doesn't fit. It just doesn't, especially, and hearing that Locke was threatened. People out there, they're trying to survive and they're trying to make money, and the buck, these guys are getting pulled in to do it, and it sounds to me that the buck is being passed. And it's like it's falling on these guys, and okay, we can justify anything, but is it right? Is it really a good fit long term? I don't know. It might be problems.
And for me, the specification title, Construction Inspector 2, and I'm not looking for them to be out there enforcing street vendors. That's not a fit for me. I, like Mr. Frost, feel that it would fall under code enforcement. And I understand that the overlapping of right-of-ways and safety is kind of split between two houses, as they say. But the title in itself, the classification, I don't feel comfortable making that a condition for them at this time, unless there's further evidence that we need to move forward or change how it's structured under whether Public Works or community services. Something's different. And I don't want the idea that the construction people are out to target, that would be their main job, opposed to being inspectors. That's what they're supposed to be doing, inspecting the constructions and roadways. So I don't want that to be a deterrent from what they're titled to do. That's just my comments on that one.
Thank you. I understand all of your points completely. We can certainly continue the meet and confer process, review it a bit more. The building inspector, as we stated before, they do inspect right-of-ways, and that's where the relation comes in with the sidewalk vendors. And code enforcement, again, is very specific in which they do private properties. We're hoping to have the collaboration between the two, and mainly to ensure that our community is safe and that, we're not having vendors who are unlicensed or haven't been under the review process or creating unsafe conditions throughout the city. I will say that ever since the inception of the program, I hope that you've seen it, but I certainly have a reduction in the number of vendors that are stationed along our thoroughfares and in certain areas. So the work that they're doing is evident in my eyes. And it would just be a shame if we had to stop for whatever reason or stop the enforcement, especially since it is a city council initiative and a directive and now written into the Richmond Municipal Code. So we're going to have to figure out a way to continue the work. And contracting is always not the best solution. We want to make sure that our unionized employees are doing the work and getting paid to do the work, receiving the benefits and the retirement that comes with a government agency position. But again, I do understand your point. And if we are not going to move forward, then we will continue our talks with the union and with leadership.
I appreciate it, and I too want our city to be safe at all times, and that the vendors, whether they're a brick and mortar or a mobile situation, that we have those safeguards in place to protect every consumer that supports or purchase items from them. And that goes throughout people coming to our wonderful city to enjoy our assets in parks and things like that. So I totally agree, and thank you for expressing that, and we look forward to more discussion.
Thank you.
Can I ask also, so in the meantime, right now, if construction inspectors are not doing this, or they stopped last week, I think you said, so there'll be contractors doing it?
Well, currently the construction inspectors were doing the work up until about a week ago. So and it was being augmented by contractors. So it will put the city in a precarious situation to try to figure out the next steps.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, if this is, I think it's a good idea to continue the meet and confer, but also just from the public comments, it sounds like there's potentially more training or more coordination with police that is necessary here, especially if they're out in these potentially dangerous situations at night.
Definitely, that is a serious concern.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the specification here, and it's like individuals who are hostile IRA, it says sometimes, and like, maybe that should be changed to frequently or often if they're expected to be going out in the middle of the night. Enforcing, yeah.
And just I don't know if they'd be very good at it.
They have been very good at it. They've been doing it since July.
Well, I mean, and hats off to him
Yes.
for stepping up and being a soldier, you know, but I don't know that, yeah, I got a hard time with that one.
Is there a motion to vote on the item? Motion to vote. Doesn't have to be motion to approve.
You do not have to move to approve, but there needs to be some kind of motion. I think your options are a motion to approve. You can move to not approve. You could also move to table to a further date to allow more information. And you can specify that date if you would like, or you can leave it to a further date.
Oh, sorry.
I, Vice Chair, move to table the classification for Construction Inspector 2. Table it to our next meeting. Would be our next HR meeting.
The next April meeting of
Yeah,
the
this
Personnel
coming
Board.
April, yes, with more information.
Can I ask a question on that?
Is it a clarification on the
Yes.
motion? Yes.
On the motion. So if we second the motion to table and we table this to the next time, is it the exact same thing that has to appear on the agenda, or can there be changes to it?
They can change it. It's just the item moves,
Okay.
so the staff report may change, but the item will continue to the April.
Okay, but it's not necessarily like a construction inspector 1 classification change, or is that the item?
That would be the item that it would be and just for clarification, board member, it was the construction inspector 1 and 2 job specifications. So you can continue that. It would be still that job specification, or you can table it indefinitely and just table it.
Or we can not approve.
Or just vote?
Or you
Yeah.
could affirmatively not approve. That is also an option.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we need to wait for a second, or can I motion to vote?
If you make multiple motions, then we will take the motions in reverse order. But I didn't hear anyone second.
It hasn't been seconded.
Okay, so if you were to make a motion and that got a second, we would vote on your motion. But if someone would like to second Board Member Buckner's motion, that can happen. Someone could then make a motion after and then we would take all the motions in reverse chronological order.
Okay,
Okay?
great.
Well, I vote not to approve. Yes.
So there is a motion to continue to the April personnel meeting. There is a second motion to not approve. Do either of those motions have a second?
I'll second the motion to not approve.
Okay, there is now a motion and a
Now take a
second
vote.
to not, and now we take the vote.
So we are voting to not approve the revisions to the Construction Inspector 1/2 job specification, starting with Vice Chair Buckner.
Yes.
Can I just ask a clarification? So this is a motion to not approve, so a yes vote means we are not approving it.
Yes
Correct.
vote is a
Okay.
not approval.
Just want to be very clear.
Chair Wizik,
Not approve. Not approve?
Board Member Front.
Yes.
The revisions to the Construction Inspector 1/2 job specification has not been approved. Moving on to item 7C, approve the revisions to the Code Enforcement Officer 1/2 job specification.
Could we take a pause? Sharon's raised a legal question to me about
Oh,
this item.
yes,
Give me
we'll
one
take
second.
a minute.
Okay, thank you. We will wait.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7C. Approve the revisions to the Code Enforcement Officer 1/2 job specification. Human Resources Director Sharon Taylor will present the staff report.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Code Enforcement Officer 1/2 job specification revision. This is the classification that would be collaborating with the construction inspector 1/2 in the enforcement of the Richmond Municipal Code regarding the sidewalk vendor ordinance. Again, this position is expected to be a complement or to provide backup to the construction inspector 1/2. As it was designated earlier to you, or I guess explained that typically their primary duty is to inspect private property, which sets it apart from the construction inspector classification. Due to the development of what occurred with the construction inspector 1/2, I'm respectfully requesting that the board table the code enforcement officer 1/2 until we can come to an agreement or come back with some revisions. Thank you.
My vice chair moved to table.
Oh, we do have
There
comments.
is public comment.
Cordell Hindler?
You forgot about me. So good evening, Chair Wurzig, board members. I am Cordell Henlon. I got the same classification, but from another city, the city of Calistoga. So, here you go, Rosma. So I had spoken with their city manager over there, and from what this classification entails is that that this person will be not only reviewing the complaints that are being witnessed, but they also have to appear in court. And so I looked at it, I'm like, I looked at Richmond's one, then I looked at Calistoga's, and I'm like, they're both in the same category. And so the code enforcement officers 1 or 2 would have to appear in court, depending on the violations. And so I was thinking about I think that this classification does require to attend court, for like a hearing if they're like property owners that are involved with the matters. And so I was gonna say to, either continue the item or vice versa. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Cordell. We will see if we have any public comment through Zoom. It looks like we do have one. Kevin Tiz, we'll let him talk. Kevin,
Thank you. Can I be, am I audible?
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Kevin Tisdale, Code Enforcement Officer, City of Richmond. Few good points are brought up, and just want to bring mention to current code enforcement staff and our administrative process is strictly and is reason why it's deals heavily with private property. How we, what we do to address issues on private property. We have lien and special assessments, and our citations in our process is administrative, right? It has that legal process for a reason. And as you venture into public property, that's again not something we have done or we currently do. As Cordell said, yes, we go to court, and but again, that's for our warrants that we send up to the city attorney's office and outside legal to seek remedies for administratively. going to the job spec, just adding, environmental health items is important because, we're not REHS, registered environmental health specialist. Anytime we see that, we go to that expert, whether it's, bugs or food or, safety. So again, we deal with things specifically on private property, but we let this particular experts handle whatever they need to handle. So that again is one primary reason why, okay, code enforcement, why can't they just do it? Because, in the public right of way, we would have no means of enforcement at all. There's nothing set up for us to enforce. So I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. So no questions at this time, unless it's related to the staff.
If you do have questions, you can do it to staff.
And doesn't feel that they are experts at I mean, he just said it, they don't feel like have the expertise on the enforcement side, on the food side. So I was wondering, does he feel that the construction inspectors, do they possess the expertise on the food side as well? I mean, I don't think they do.
I think that, the point that Mr. Tisdale is trying to make, and again, he is a staff person, he's also a code enforcement officer, so he's speaking from experience. I don't think that he can speak to the construction inspector's expertise. I don't think that that was his point. I think what he's saying is that the work that they do as code enforcement officers is different, and it has a different, he says it's more administrative versus, the type of work that the construction inspectors are currently doing. Of course, I can bring him in to answer your questions. He is an employee and is available for questions, but we also have the supervisor, Ms. Eva Mann, and we also have Lena Velasco as well.
Thank you.
I feel like the chair was raising kind of a rhetorical point there more. But it's, I mean, I think it raises a good question, and I'd be curious how, I'm not asking for this right now, but maybe for the next meeting, assuming this is tabled to the next meeting, I'd be interested to learn about how other cities deal with this, because it's almost like street vending, sidewalk vending is like in this kind of weird gray area where it's like, kind of feels like it should be code enforcement, but it's in public right of way, so it's not like private business, but they kind of are private business because they're selling things. I'm sure someone else has figured it out.
We're hoping to bring back the information to you, maybe not at the next meeting. We want to allow time to confer with the leadership, with the departments, of course, with the unions. So, but we will bring forth something as soon as we have something tangible to bring forth.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move to table this to the next meeting then.
Vice Chair Buckner seconds.
Okay, voting to chair the revisions to the code enforcement officer 1/2 job specification, starting with Vice Chair Buckner.
Yes.
Sorry.
The motion is to continue the item, not to approve
continue.
it.
Correction, voting to continue the item of the revisions to the code enforcement officer 1/2 job specification, starting with Vice Chair Buckner.
Aye. Yes.
Chair Wizik,
Yes.
Board Member Friend.
Yes.
Okay. The revisions to the code enforcement officer 1/2 job specification has been continued.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7D, establish the classification of vocational building construction instructor and approve the job specification. And Human Resources Director Sharon Taylor will present the staff report.
We are bringing forth the classification of vocational building construction instructor to you. Our current employment and training division has a Richmond Build in which they provide training to our community residents to prepare them for a career in the construction trade. It's a wonderful program. Currently, we contract out the instruction aspect of this program, and we're hoping to, again, bring this position in-house as a full-time salaried unionized position. We do have the Employment and Training Director on the line, Tamara Walker, if you have any questions, but we bring forth this position for your consideration. Thank you.
Sorry, I just want to add that Tamara has not joined the Zoom yet.
Okay.
Any questions?
I have no questions. I, Vice Chair Buckner, move. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Public
comment.
Comments.
If there's no questions, we'll go to public comment on the item. And we have Cordell Hindler.
Point of order. So, good evening again, Vice Chair Wersick, board members. I am Cordell Hindler, and I'm a Richmond resident. So, I was looking at the vocational building construction instructor, and I don't have no objections to it. So, I think the classification is well prepared. So now, the following will be as follows. So, for one, for the board to approve the classification as presented, and number two, to direct staff to work with either the buyers group or Coffin Gallagher Company. I'm like, ooh, almost bobbled. Is that and company to work on the recruitment for this classification. So that's it.
Thank you, Cordell.
I, Vice Chair Buckner, move to accept and go forward with the vocational building construction instructor position.
I second.
I third.
Voting to approve to establish the classification of vocational building construction instructor and approve the job specifications, starting with Vice Chair Buckner.
Yes.
Chair Wizik.
Yes.
Board Member Front.
Yes.
The classification of vocational building construction instructor and job specification have been approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8, unfinished old business, there is none. Item 9, there is no review or issuance of subpoenas. Item 10, there's no consideration of problems and reports. So motion to adjourn?
I, Vice Chair, move for adjournment.
Chair Worsig, seconds.
Meeting adjourned at 7:39 p.m.
Recording stopped.